Here are the top stories for today, June 30, 2021. Halfway to go to achieve population protection, more vaccines are coming into the country as the government ramps up its inoculation drive. Environment protection remains a priority as the government continues to restore coral reefs in the country. Measures are underway to curb the alarming number of teen pregnancies. And Filipina golfers Yuka Saso and Bianca Pagdanganan qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The government is targeting to administer 8 to 10 million doses of COVID-19 jabs in the whole month of July as more supplies are expected to come in. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. says the vaccination rate will increase more than the expected target once the vaccines procured by the private sectors are delivered. The government has already breached the 10 million mark on Saturday to hit its target utilization of 5 million doses for June alone. Galvez attributed these positive developments to the efforts of the local government units to further improve their respected vaccination plans.
Ang ating National Vaccination Operations Center, kasama po ang ating mga LGU sa pamumuno po ni Secretary Vince Dizon, will endeavor to achieve 8 to 10 million doses to be administered for the month of July, the global supply permitting. Yun po ang target po natin ngayon na makapagbakuna po tayo ng more or less 2 milyon kada week po.
The government expects the arrival of about 13 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines in July. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. says they are expecting the arrival of some 5.5 million doses of Sinovac, 1.17 million doses of AstraZeneca, 250,800 doses of Moderna, and 500,000 doses of Pfizer-BioNTech. The country may also receive 2 to 4 million doses of vaccine from the COVAX facility, 800,000 to 1 million doses donated by the United States government, and 1.1 million doses from the Japanese government. The Japanese embassy in Manila says they are working double time to deliver the donation. In a tweet, Japanese ambassador to the Philippines, Koshikawa Kazuhiko, said the shipment will arrive in Manila tentatively on July 8. More and more COVID-19 vaccines are being delivered at the different local government units as the country ramps up on inoculation drive. The Philippines is expecting to achieve population protection before the year ends. The details from Marita Moahe.
The national government turned over to Manila 22,800 doses of the Moderna vaccine on Tuesday night. This is part of the first shipment of 249,600 doses that arrived on Sunday. Moderna is among the brand of vaccines accepted by employers of seafarers. The vaccines were delivered to the Santa Ana Hospital where the COVID-19 storage facility of Manila is located. Meanwhile, Western Visayas receives 150,000 vials of the Sinovac vaccine today. The Office of Civil Defense says this is the region's biggest vaccine arrival so far. Of the total allocation, Iloilo City will receive the biggest share of 50,000 vials. In Dumaguete City, more vaccines are expected to arrive amid the massive inoculation of its residents. Mayor Felipe Antonio Remolyo said the additional vaccines will be shipped directly to the city. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Moahe.
PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar urged the public to get fully vaccinated against COVID-19 as this is the only way to protect the people. Andanar called for support to the government's Best Bakuna campaign.
Anong available? Pwede. Kung Sinovac ba yan, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna, Sputnik. Kung anong meron sa harapan nyo na handang ibigay sa inyo ng inyong munisipyo, ng inyong Department of Health dyan sa inyong rehiyon, ay tanggapin nyo na para safe po tayo lahat. Wala ho talagang ibang solusyon dito sa COVID-19 sa mga lockdown para matigil na kung hindi ang pagpapabakuna. Dahil yan lamang ang nag-iisang paraan at solusyon na tayo ay makamove forward na para matigil na itong pagsadsad ng ating ekonomiya.
The National Task Force Against COVID-19 allocates more vaccines to the NCR Plus 10, which includes priority areas in Visayas and in Mindanao. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. says the deployed number of vaccines is based on data. This means the government is deploying more jabs in areas with a rising number of COVID-19 infections. So far, the National Capital Region has received about 4 million doses. 1 million doses have been given to Calabarzon, while regions 3, 6, 7, and 11 get an average of 400,000 doses each. Bacolod, Iloilo, Cagayan de Oro, Baguio, Zamboanga, Dumaguete, Tuguegarao, General Santos, Naga, and Legazpi are the 10 other areas of concern. Galvez says they are also studying how they can expand the vaccination capacity of some LGUs for additional allocation. Cebu Governor Gwendolyn Garcia maintains that the protocols being implemented by the provincial government for the incoming travelers has been effective in preventing the entry of COVID-19 cases in their province. This includes the mandatory swab test upon arrival for OFWs and returning overseas Filipinos. Garcia said their protocol under Executive Order 17 has been successful in slowing down the transmission of COVID-19 in their locality. She meanwhile clarified that the policy only applies to Cebuanos who are going home from abroad. For its part, IATF medical expert Dr. Edsel Salvania said that the swab upon arrival method poses the risk of having false negative RT-PCR test results. Under the IATF rule, an arriving OFW or ROF will be subjected to 10-day quarantine in a facility and 4 days at home and a mandatory RT-PCR test on the 7th day. Salvania says he has no objection to the swab upon arrival policy, but proper quarantine must be done to prevent the transmission of coronavirus. He also warned the Cebuanos about the presence of the Delta variant of COVID-19, which is 60% more transmissible than the Alpha or UK variant. Meanwhile, Task Force Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. says sending OFWs and ROFs for home quarantine poses risks as social distancing and other healthcare protocols are difficult to observe while at home. Galvez said a person tested positive for COVID-19 can easily be isolated from the rest of the people in the community if he is placed in a facility. The Interagency Task Force has given the green light for Israel's national swimming team to conduct its pre-Olympic training in Kapas Tarlac. The IATF approved the Philippine Swimming Incorporated's request to host the Israeli national swimming team for their training at the new Clark City Aquatics Center. In a virtual press conference, presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said Israeli swimmers would undergo training from July 8 to 21 under a sports bubble format. Israeli swimmers are expected to comply with the strict health and safety protocols amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Roque also took pride in the country's hosting of the training of Israel's national swimming team. In May, the IATF also approved the PSI's request to host the 2021 Swimming National Selection Meet at the new Clark City Aquatic Center. It also allowed athletes in the Tokyo Olympics and the Southeast Asian Games to resume their training under a bubble-type setting. Still to come, let us take a look at the refreshing coral restoration project in Marinduque. And the health department urges the public not to further humiliate the nurse who failed to administer the jab. Details ahead, this is the PNA Newsroom. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly changed our lives for the worse. Lives and jobs were lost and economies reached a meltdown. Thanks to the arrival of safe and effective vaccines, we are one step closer to normalcy. It's time to do our part Get vaccinated for our safety and for our recovery.
If you are there in that community, go there and have yourself vaccinated by any of the vaccines available. They are all potent, they are all effective.
I would like to appeal to all our kababayans, please get vaccinated against COVID-19 and be the government partner in preventing further spread of the disease. I encourage you to get vaccinated as soon as possible time. These vaccines are safe and they are the key to reopening our society. The need for international solidarity and cooperation cannot be made clearer than this pandemic, because everyone is safe. No one is safe globally until everybody is safe.
Vaccines work. To preserve marine life in Marinduque, the government is working on the restoration of coral reefs in the province's waters. Chris Mundo has the story.
The Department of Science and Technology is leading the restoration of corals in Marinduque's waters. This is the first large-scale restoration effort in the Mimaropa region that seeks to reverse reef degradation and improve the productivity of marine resources. The project aims to repopulate corals in seabeds and other areas where there are no live coral cover due to siltation and sedimentation along the coasts. Coral nursery units, or CNU, are used to facilitate the growth of the asexually reproduced corals. Each CNU is designed to hold 500 live coral fragments or corals of opportunity per batch several times a year. The technology is developed by the University of San Carlos. The CNUs are expected to be deployed in all municipalities at the end of July. On board the project are the provincial government of Marinduque and the 6 municipalities of the province, Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, Marinduque State College, and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
The Department of Health urged the public not to crucify a healthcare worker over failure to properly inoculate a COVID-19 vaccine. DOH Undersecretary and spokesperson Maria Rosario Vergere asked for understanding for the healthcare worker. She confirmed that the viral video showing a healthcare worker failing to administer a COVID-19 jab was human error. Vergere said the mistake may have occurred due to exhaustion, but it still cannot be justified. She called on the public to report any error to help avoid similar incidents in the future. Earlier, the DOH announced its investigation of the breach of vaccination protocol in the viral video that circulated on social media. DOH Secretary Francisco Duque III said the incident will be used to improve the national vaccination program speed, scale, and quality of service. President Rodrigo Duterte has declared the prevention of teenage pregnancies as a national priority. Under Executive Order 141 issued on June 25, Duterte stressed the need to implement measures that will address the root causes of the rising number of adolescent pregnancies. Duterte acknowledged that childbearing in adolescence carries increased risk of health problems for both the mother and child. EO 141 also considers that girls living in dysfunctional homes spend more time at home as a result of the pandemic and are thereby more exposed to abuse. To address teenage pregnancies, all government bodies will identify and implement interventions such as comprehensive sex education, education and employment opportunities, and health promotion. State departments and offices are also directed to reach out to adolescents in island municipalities, upland communities, hard-to-reach places, and conflict-affected areas. The Philippine Statistics Authority has recorded nearly 181,000 live births among adolescents aged 10 to 19 in the Philippines in 2019. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, is now helping people with mental health issues through its wireless mental health and psychosocial support for individuals and families affected by COVID-19 and other crisis situations, or We Support program. The program has assisted at least 42 individuals who reported suffering from heightened anxiety amid the COVID-19 pandemic from April 30 until June 20. The program uses online platforms such as email, internet, telephone, and mobile app to provide easy access to communication tools on mental health matters. The clients were provided with interventions such as psychological first aid and counseling. For emergency cases, the DSWD said clients will be referred to psychiatrists, psychologists, and mental health institutions. The project is currently on pilot test in the National Capital Region, Central Visayas, and Caraga. President Rodrigo Duterte has approved the merger of state-owned banks, Land Bank of the Philippines and United Coconut Planters Bank, or UCPB. Duterte inked Executive Order 142 on June 25, which will contribute to economic sufficiency, foster countryside development and financial inclusion, and promote stability in the country's banking system. He acknowledged that the merger of Land Bank and UCPB will significantly strengthen the capability to deliver financial services to the coconut industry and the entire agriculture sector. The UCPB and the LBP will determine the mode of merger and implement the same with the approval of relevant regulatory agencies. All assets and liabilities of UCPB will also be transferred to LBP. The UCPB and LBP should also prepare and implement an integration plan towards the full implementation of the merger in accordance with existing laws and regulations. Up next, tired of pursuing a battle, a former Bayan Muna coordinator returns to the folds of the law. And Filipina golfers Yuka Saso and Bianca Pagdanganan qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom. You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara sees nothing legally amiss in the announcement of President Rodrigo Duterte to allow qualified civilians to bear arms as force multipliers. Guevara said except during martial law, civilians have always been free to arm themselves for their protection, provided they comply with all existing rules on the ownership, possession, and carrying of firearms. These include passing a neuropsychiatric test and a mandatory drug test. The DOJ chief said, however, allowing armed civilians to band together and operate like vigilantes is a different matter. He said the Philippine National Police has sufficient manpower and resources to combat crime. He added that except for a few high-profile incidents of violence, criminality on the streets is at an all-time low due in part to the pandemic. A former Bayan Muna official and member of the New People's Army has surrendered to the Philippine Army in Sarangani Province. Marvin Magrano, a former Bayan Muna Sarangani coordinator, surrendered to the 73rd Infantry Battalion on June 26. Magrano, also a part of the education propaganda staff of the NPA's guerrilla front, Tala, turned over anti-personnel mines and a rifle. The landmines were intended for villages in Alabel, Sarangani that will conduct community support programs. Earlier on June 22nd, kilusang magbubukid ng Pilipinas Southern Mindanao Regional Committee National Treasurer Pedro Arnado surrendered to authorities. Arnado said physical exhaustion, weakened party leadership, and weakening of mass bases made him return to the government fold. 10th Infantry Division Commander Major General Ernesto Torres Jr. said they hope more members of communist terrorist groups will emulate these leaders and surrender. A military official is calling for the filing of cases against the leaders of the Communist Party of the Philippines' New People's Army, aside from bringing home CPP-NPA founding chair Jose Maria Sison to face charges. Armed Forces of the Philippines Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, Major General Edgardo de Leon, agreed with calls for Sison to face trial for the atrocities committed by the CPP-NPA. De Leon said Sison may be charged under Republic Act 9851, which penalizes crimes against international humanitarian law committed by Filipino citizens. In case Sison denies being a Filipino to escape the law's jurisdiction, he could still be charged by the country whose nationality he will assume. De Leon added that sustained filing of cases is needed against the CPP-NPA leadership as the terrorists are conducting attacks against communities in Mindanao on a daily basis. Pope Francis has appointed Manila Auxiliary Bishop Broderick Pabilio as Vicar Apostolic of Taytay in Palawan. Pabilio has served as the Apostolic Administrator of Manila for more than a year before the installation of Manila Archbishop Jose Cardinal Advincula on June 24. Reverend Father Noel Pedraguisa is also assigned as Bishop of Malaybalay in Bukidnon. The bishop-elect is the diocesan administrator of Malaybalay. Their appointments were made public at the Vatican on Tuesday. In sports, Filipina golfers Yuka Saso and Bianca Pagdanganan have officially earned their spots in the Tokyo Olympics following the final release of the Olympic ranking for women's golf on Tuesday night. Saso booked her spot in the Olympics through the top 15 quota and even rose a spot in the Ladies Professional Golf Association rankings. On the other hand, Pagdanganan entered through the second qualification quota, in which countries with less than 2 representatives in the top 15 can clinch the remaining 45 spots with a limit of 2 participants per country. Pagdanganan, currently 165th in the world, finished at number 44 in the Olympic rankings. Saso and Pagdanganan are the 16th and 17th members of the Philippine team. And here's another look at today's biggest stories. Halfway to go to achieve population protection, more vaccines are coming into the country as the government ramps up its inoculation drive. Environment protection remains a priority as the government continues to restore coral reefs in the country. Measures are underway to curb the alarming number of teen pregnancies. And Filipina golfers Yuka Saso and Bianca Pagdanganan qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone.